involved the Republican Party a lot, but as even a year ago, you know, the Republican Party's been trying to rebrand itself, and in my opinion, has made no progress. Excuse me. And what we're finding is that from the information that you've seen and garnered, that the old elite of the Republican Party is trying to kill off the Tea Party. They feel threatened by them. You know, the Karl Roves, the Mitch McConnells, and we just don't need these people anymore, even John McCain. And I've been working on a project for over a year now with a lot of my analysts, and it's called the Americans Project. When I met with the Tea Party up in Denver several months ago, I went over the Americans Project with them, and they got very excited about it. And I know one of the questions tonight is, how could Stand Up America work with the Tea Parties? And so after a lot of thought and discussion about that, and for my trip down to Florida, I've come up, I think, with a formative plan that we can all work on. We know they're going to try to kill the Tea Party anywhere we can. So we can't go on the defensive, we've got to go on the offensive. And so my thought would be, if you read the Americans really is a movement like the Tea Party was. But for Stand Up America, that's been proposed to me, that it sort of be an umbrella leadership group of some very senior people in the country that could garner and basically pull together the Tea Parties into an overall organization with some senior leadership in it that would be respected and heard, particularly for those people inside the Beltway. So what I'm proposing tonight is that we not rebrand the Tea Party, but let's figure out how we can raise it to a new level. My thought is we have to raise it above the Democrats and Republicans and the political parties. The Americans that we want to put in office, like the Tea Party, are those that support certain things. Constitution, smaller government, different tax system, forward strategy, and national security. Now, Stand Up America can sort of play the part because we spend a lot of time, as you know, in national security. I've been in the Middle East 4 times in the last 18 months. I'm the only senior guy that's been inside Syria, and I was there 2 months ago with the Free Syrian Army. And I just returned from Egypt last month, meeting with General Sisi and the new leadership in Egypt. So that perspective of Stand Up America, which primarily focuses on national security, and the Tea Party continue with the issues that the Tea Party was based on. So to me, it's a nice blend of the capability we have at Stand Up America, the capability within the Tea Parties, that to really start going on the offensive now and not to be backed off by the Karl Roves and all the other people out there that think that the Tea Party's an albatross around the neck of the Republicans. It's just absolutely the opposite. They're the albatross around the neck of Americans.
That's right.
If you read my latest article, it sort of went viral last week, called America at the Crossroads. They had a full page in the paper up here on it this Sunday. And when I wrote it, I never thought it would be, you know, that kind of a reception throughout the country. We've had more people contributing $5, $10, $15, $50 to Stand Up America just in the last 10 days. It's been phenomenal, the reaction we're getting. So we're hitting some very important issues out there for the American people. And so last week in that article, as you may have seen, I called for the resignation of the senior leadership in Congress and in the White House. The demand resignation of Obama, Biden, Pelosi, Harry Reid, John Boehner, and Mitch McConnell. And the reason I did that, because I want to be above the Republicans and Democrats. We want to form a whole new movement in this country whereas we put candidates in who put America first. And if they can't put America first and agree with what we have in the Tea Party and Stand Up America and all those issues, then we don't want to put them in office. And we've been able to put through the Tea Party some very good people in office. I mean, Ted Cruz has absolutely been maligned, and he gave a wonderful talk, by the way. All these candidates won't be perfect. And I've told people, even on a cruise I was on, a political cruise several months ago, with the head of CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Committee, the NRA, and everybody in one of the forums, well, who do you think should be president? And they were Marco Rubio and Chris Christie and a few others. And so I told the group there, Al Cardenas, who used to be the head of the Republican Party in Florida, is now head of CPAC. And I told the group all there, and my good friend Ollie North was there because we sponsored this cruise each year together, that we have to think not about a politician becoming a leader of the United States. Let's think of somebody, a George Washington out there, to lead the country, and doesn't have to be a senator, doesn't have to be a congressman, does not have to be a governor. So I think that's where we have to go with the Tea Party and the Americans, is to try to find true leaders. If I was to put a leader in tomorrow, it would be Admiral Ace Lyons. He's a 4-star admiral. He's 85 years old, but his mind is so brilliant and with common sense that if you've ever seen any of his videos or his articles, you can Google it or you can find it on YouTube. Absolutely marvelous. This guy could turn the country around in a year. And so, and of course, Admiral Lyons wouldn't run for office, but there are so many out there, retired senior military, that understand national security, could face off against a Putin, face off against the guy in Tehran. And that's the kind of maturity and common sense of people of wisdom that we need running our government. We don't need these amateurs running for office and running for president. And I can tell you, when you face up against a guy like Putin, you better be a professional and have your act together, be able to look him right in the eyes. We don't have any of these politicians that can do that. So we need a whole fresh way, I think, of looking at who we put in office and what kind of a movement we have in the country. I think we've got something going now in this crossroads that we're at. I would say that how do we invigorate the Tea Parties to come together with some kind of a American Provisional Leadership Council, and that's what I proposed in my article last week, that we bring together people of respect out of the private sector, retired military who understand national security, understand the threats out there, and tie together with some strong people that understand the economy and understand what we need to do with the taxes. And I listed probably about 12 things in that article. Of all the things that I would do, based on the analysis we've done at Stand Up America, we can eliminate 45% of the U.S. government tomorrow and we wouldn't miss it. Think of the money that we would save. I mean, we don't need the EPA.
That's right, yes.
If you look at Arizona, you look at Montana, and I've met with a lot of these people, we have so many talented people at the state level that understand the environment in Arizona. They understand the environment in Montana. We don't need anybody at the federal level telling us what's good. I mean, we have some brilliant people. So there's a good example. Do away with the IRS. All we need is a fair, flat tax. I would totally reorganize the Defense Department in a lot of different ways, and I'm going to write a paper on a little later on how we do that. We don't need the Federal Reserve. It's a cartel. That's all it is. It's a money cartel. Put everything back in the Department of Treasury. With our digital world today, we can collect money, say on a flat or fair tax, goes into the Treasury, it funds the government on the requirements the federal government should have with a sharing opportunity down to the states. This is creative thinking that we've got to have. Why do we need the Department of Education? We've got so many talented people at the state and local county level who can certainly run the schools today. I mean, even the homeschoolers are doing wonderful today. So We don't need that kind of large organizations and institution. If I was president, I'd say, okay, I'm going to have a council of 4 or 5 of the most brilliant educators in the country, and they'll advise me. That's all we need at the federal level. We don't need a big institutional organization. Why do we need the Department of Energy? The private sector can handle all the energy. We don't need a Department of Energy to guide us what we do. Some of the jobs that may be specific to the Department of Energy could be, say, moved to the Department of Commerce. We don't need Homeland Security.
No.
Let's take most of the jobs or the requirements for our security, whether it be external or internal, should be in the Pentagon. All of these things can be done and eliminate 45% of our government. And look at the money that could go back into the country, back into the states for jobs and energy. You know, we've got so much energy sitting out here in Montana, it's unbelievable, in the Bakken. Look what's happening in the Dakotas, all the jobs. We have a lot of our young people going over to North Dakota to work when they should be working here in Montana. There's a lot of things that could go into the Department of Interior. So we could reallocate a lot of the specific things that the government can do and should do into the departments that we really need. We don't need HUD, Housing and Urban Development. What do we need that for? People in the states and private can handle the housing in America. We're the most giving nation in the world. And we can give to ourselves. If we had all that money, we could build affordable housing in our communities and have that work. I can't remember all the things in the yard. I can't remember half the things I write sometimes when I have to talk about it. But when you look at the reorganization of America and new leadership, and my God, we've got to have term limits. I mean, we can't let these guys be career people anymore. One of the focuses we have on the Americans is to focus on what I call the 30-year-olds. And I listened to a whole group of young people in Florida when I was back there 2 weeks ago. We've got some very brilliant young people between 25 and 40 years old. They're very smart. And we had a number of them there where there were conservatives. Ben Shapiro out of Los Angeles, brilliant young guy, 29, and he's formed a new group, Go for the Hearts, because the Republicans didn't know how to go for the heart of the throat. In fact, he described them as a bunch of wimps, that the Democrats seem to beat them all the time wherever they go. I'm not sure these guys could last in a bar fight. Most of these Republicans we have, they're just not tough. They won't fight.
That's right.
So the focus on these, what I call the 30-year-olds, I think is very important. And what they basically passed on to me was, and it's very true, I mean, this social, Facebook, all of this stuff is critical to these people because they're on their cell phones, they're on their computers. And if you can't communicate today through that, then you're not going to attract those people. And so that's what Obama was very good at. You know, they use that social network quite a bit. I know I'm on there, but I don't do it. I have people that are my staff that put a lot of stuff up there, the younger people, of what we're doing. But we really have to look how we connect to the younger people in the country. And James O'Keefe, do you remember him?
Yeah.
He was the one that did the operation against Acorn.
Right.
He went in as a pimp, and Hannah Giles, who was also there at the meeting, she was the prostitute.
Yeah.
They broke into Acorn.
Right.
And saw all the fraud that was going on. Well, they're doing the same thing now with these so-called navigators for Obamacare. And you can't believe the fraud and the stuff that's going on there. You probably have seen it. So some of these young people out there are doing things, and we need to get behind them as much as we can. So that's sort of my overview, and I'll be happy to now. I think we probably should go through some questions, and we can talk about a lot of different things while we have time tonight. I do have a list of questions, by the way, and I can bring those up anytime you'd like to. Jeff, so however you'd like to cover this is fine with me.
Well, when we spoke earlier, you said you were fine with having some of our members come up, so we've given the questions out if it's okay. We'll bring them up, and here comes question number 1. Introduce yourself.
Okay.
Sure.
Hi, thank you so much for coming tonight in your service. Can you hear me? Okay. Can you hear me?
Step back.
No. Okay. Hi.
There you go. I see you.
Okay, hi.
This is great technology, isn't it?
Sure is. There I am. Okay, cool. Okay, in recent articles and maybe even videos, you have called for the peaceful removal and forced resignation of the president. What kind of action do you foresee being necessary to accomplish this? And what can we do as a Tea Party group to help?
Okay. I think if we don't change, there's going to be so much civil unrest and some kind of a revolution in this country, and I'm not sure what it's going to look like. And I'm not suggesting that we have a military coup or anything like that. If you go back in history, countries have changed. Rome changed, France, our revolution. When people feel enough pain, they will revolt. But this president and this Congress, they're causing so much pain in America because they're totally broken. They can't get anything done. So when you examine the Constitution, there's only certain things that can be done by the Constitution. Unfortunately, our forefathers didn't think of a lot of things maybe that could have been done. Let's take impeachment. Impeachment's not going to work. With this partisan Congress, just like Clinton, passed the House but didn't get through the Senate. You try to impeach Obama, those guys in the Senate aren't going to go for it. So it's almost like it's a tool, but it's not a tool in our current political situation. You can die in office, you can get sick. We don't have many options like a parliamentarian system where you have a no confidence vote. So the only thing we really have, what we call demand resignations, which, remember they brought down Nixon demanding his resignation. So that's why I'm pressing forward, and I know it's probably not going to work, but at least I have to be out there, we have to be out there saying, you guys are not doing the job. You're corrupt, you're inept, you lie, you're tearing the country down to depths that we may never recover from, or it's going to take a long time to recover from. So therefore, you need to be moved out of office. You do not deserve to be in an office of leadership. Now that takes a lot of civilians at state capitals and protests. We did the first one in front of the White House about 3 weeks ago, and it was just a small one, but it worked, and Admiral Lyons was one of the speakers there. We're sort of restricted with the way our government's structured, but unless the people stand up and shout it out and demand these resignations that could lead to impeachment, because we have a lot of treasonous things that are happening. People that are constantly lying. We're working on the Benghazi issue, by the way. We'll come out with a report on that next week. But the lies and deception, why should we tolerate this in America? And they take lies as being misspeaking. Give me a break. You either lie or you don't lie. I don't get it all. So I think as more people stand up like you and do things and get our younger people to understand before we're so far over the cliff that our country can fall in a matter of time. If they only knew the external threats that I know about to the United States, and I'm sure some of you are aware of it. So
Thank you.
it's up to us to make the changes, is what I'm saying. We need a George Washington out there to lead us, and we've got to remove these people from office somehow.
Good evening, General. This is Julie Wise, co-founder of the
Hi,
Enterprise Tea Party. Good evening. Tonight you introduced the concept of establishing the Americans. Could you reinforce whether you see this simply being an umbrella group to bring together and encompass the Tea Parties, or being a political action group like a PAC? Or do you see an actual political party fielding candidates for state and national office?
Yeah, great question. And I do have that down, so I thought about that a lot. Again, I would look at the way things happen in any countries is a movement. It's not a political party. To form a new political party in the United States is so insurmountable with the state laws and everything you've got to go through. But a movement can move people to elect the right people. And if it becomes a third party at some point in time, God bless, I wish we had a good third party like the Americans. But it's a lot of work to get there. So in the interim stage, I think to be an umbrella organization with an excellent leadership council that will all be on the same sheet of music, and it'll be very effective. And it could lead to a third party. I mean, there's enough people out there, even young people that I've talked to, that would like to have an alternative to a third party. And I would call that party the Americans, by the way, if it came to that. But that could be an evolution. It could evolve to that if we get enough support to make that happen. So, Julie, I hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
Okay, third question.
Good evening. My name is Lou Snyderman. I'm with the Northwest Valley Tea Party, and I have a two-part question. Are you able and willing to say whether your disassociation with Fox News as a military commentator had anything to do with your questioning of Obama's eligibility at the time, and whether you personally know of any Fox reporters who were threatened not to speak about that issue?
Great question. I was the first military analyst hired by Fox in October of 2001. It was a week after 9/11, and Fox had no military analyst at all. So I had done some shows on CNN and Fox, and so Fox called me up and said, "We'd like to sign you to a contract." So at that time, for 8 years, I was on contract to Fox, and then I had open heart surgery a few years ago, and I couldn't travel anymore, so I couldn't do the New York trip in Washington, D.C. as I was doing in the past. But I can tell you, my time at Fox, I had full reign. I mean, I could say whatever I wanted to. Nobody ever forced me to say anything. And then, oh goodness, I'm trying to think, either 2009, there was an article written in the New York Times of a reporter who finally got a Pulitzer Prize for the article, challenging all the military officers that were on the air that we were getting paid. We were basically mouthpieces for Rumsfeld and the Defense Department. And they had 2 congressional investigations at that time. Carl Levin, for one, started an investigation, investigated everybody for about 2 years, and found out there was nothing to it. Now, there were some military retired generals that had contracts. My good friend General McInerney had a contract with Northrop Grumman, but he was a civilian. He was allowed to do that. And whatever he said on air, I can tell you from General McInerney's standpoint, there was nothing that anybody was forcing him to say at the time. But when that happened, the networks backed off the military guys. And so for the last 3 or 4 years, you haven't seen that many military guys. Even on Fox, you'll see a few, but there's not many. They have everybody commenting on national security or political strategists, inside Beltway people don't have a clue, talking about the military and operations in Iraq and Afghanistan and so on and so forth. All the ones that I work with, and there were many of them, even on the different networks, Ken Allard, who was on NBC quite a bit, Rick Fancona, who was with maybe CBS, I'm not sure, General McCaffrey, they were pretty clean. I saw no negatives or anything that they were being paid by anybody to mouth anybody's opinion in Washington, D.C. But we got a bad rap placed on us. That's all I can say. And I didn't have a government contract, and I was sort of the mouthpiece for a long time. Roger Ailes used to say, if we wanted anybody to hammer anybody, get General Vallely in. And so I was brought in one night to hammer Jesse Jackson, and I brought him to his knees, and I was with Charles Krauthammer. Charles says, I've never seen anybody slice and dice Jesse Jackson like you did tonight. So anyhow, we need more people that are not inside the Beltway people on television, because it is a great medium. I do more radio shows now than I do TV, and reach a lot of people out there. So it's very effective. But some of us have to do it. I'm 70. I was 74 2 days ago, by the way. Had 2 open chest surgeries. I was 99% dead in 2004. No, it wasn't 2000. No, 2006 when I had an aortic aneurysm, and they finally got me at the hospital with 10 minutes to live. And so anyhow, it's sort of a miracle, but I think let's say, you know, we're kept on earth, I guess, for some reason to go ahead. And I just feel I get passionate every day about doing things and trying to figure out how to get this country back on track. I do like national security. I do like traveling over to the Middle East and find out what's going on and be able to come back and report that. So anyhow, hope that answers your question.
I like that part about slicing the ham. Jesse Jackson, I'm originally from Chicago. My name's Frank Carroll.
Hi, Frank.
I'm first vice chairman of the Republican Party here in this district in Maricopa County. And the question here is, can you tell us whether yourself or Lieutenant General McInerney were obstructed from submitting written or verbal support for Terry Lakin to the court prior to or during his court-martial, and whether you've reviewed Sheriff Joe Arpaio's evidence, mainly or referring to specifically the video evidence that he's submitting.
Yes, I was called by a group in Washington if I would support Colonel Lakin when he refused to abide by the orders of the Commander-in-Chief and be deployed to Afghanistan. Terry was a medical officer, as you know. And so when I examined everything, and Terry really was challenging the legitimacy of President Obama as the president. So I examined it and found out that in my own beliefs, you know, they try to label me as a birther. I said, I'm not a birther. I mean, I just trying to figure out where the hell this guy was born, where he came from, and how he got here. And that was my main thing. So what we found out through the Terry Lakin trial was that the colonel, a woman colonel who was the military judge, absolutely was ordered from the White House not to allow any evidence to come into being about the legitimacy of Barack Obama and his birth certificate and all of that stuff. So that system was purged very early on by the Terry Lakin case. And I had asked General McInerney if he'd come on and give his opinion and even testify, which he did. Terry went on and served a short period of time at Fort Leavenworth, and he's out now, I think, in New Mexico practicing medicine, and I'm in touch with him occasionally. But my feeling is with Joe Arpaio, matter of fact, if you look back, you can Google it, when they came out with the birth certificate from the White House, I had several CIA guys examine that right away. We proved within 48 hours it was a false document. It had been layered, about 6 to 8 different layers. There was not a true document, and it was only a certificate that was whatever they call that, Photoshop. And so even today, I think Joe's investigation, which nobody in Congress will take, by the way, nobody wants to touch it. Because he's the first white-black president, that's what I call him, the first white-black president. And nobody in Congress will touch it. Even if Fox, go back to what your question even alluded to earlier, Fox was pressured. Sean Hannity's the only one that stood up for a while. That's one of the reasons Glenn Beck left. And so they didn't want anybody questioned, even Bill O'Reilly. Oh, well, I've examined it, you know, it's down and all that. Baloney.
That's right.
Bill doesn't do all the homework he thinks he does, but he thinks he's smart. So, I've done over 50 shows with Bill O'Reilly, so he's not as smart as he thinks he is. He doesn't do his homework as much as you think he would like you to think, anyhow. My own opinion.
General, my name is Earl Braun. I'm from Wisconsin, but here for the winter. But question is, can you comment on the many recent stories about the 200 or so senior military officers that have been dismissed? What approximate percentage of those have been for political reasons, and do you personally know any of those dismissed? What can be done about this, and is it a pretense to martial law or international law?
It's a little bit garbled. Are you talking about the purging of the officers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The current purging of officers, yeah, okay. I'll be happy to address. I just did a show this afternoon on that, by the way, Joe Messina out of Los Angeles. As we've examined it, there's a number of purges going on that we can validate. The purge of senior officers all the way down to enlisted men are being purged out. And I'll give you some examples of that. So you have purging of people because they're not falling in line with the Obama political guys and the ideology. But you also have a purge of documents and training. General Dempsey came out and told everybody in the training area, you've got to get rid of, eliminate the use of radical Islam. You can't use it in any teaching materials. You cannot portray the radical Islamists, Al-Qaeda, as enemies of the United States. You have the purging of Christianity within the ranks. You have so much social engineering going on. And I'll give you a case, and you can find this as well. An Air Force sergeant was removed from his position 2 months ago because he didn't believe in gay marriages. His squadron commander was a female lesbian. She removed him from his position because he did not fall in line and agree with her the gay marriages, okay? You have Christianity. General Jerry Boykin, my good friend, he gave a talk in a church in uniform, and he was mustered out of the Army, okay? Purge on Christianity. I met about 2 months ago up here in Big Fork from a young Navy lieutenant who had contacted me and wanted to have breakfast, and he wanted to bounce some things off on me. So we met here, had coffee and breakfast, and so he was telling me about what's going on board the ships. He said, we have more classes now on sexual harassment than we do on ways to fire our guns, land ships, or land airplanes, and do all the things that the Navy guys do. He said, we sit in the galley for breakfast or lunch, and he said, we have senior officers who are overhearing what we're saying, and they will come up to us and absolutely tell us to knock it off. We can't talk about politics. We can't talk about Obama. It's like the political commissars that were in the Russian army. Remember, every Russian unit, they had a political commissar. Chinese the same way. And they were propagandists. That's what's going on in our military. This is coming from the troops. The morale, I can tell you, absolutely is the lowest it's ever been, because they're being purged on First Amendment rights. And even, you know, back when I was a young lieutenant, I never talked about the president and all that. I mean, you could talk about policy and issues, or why we're cutting this back, or why doing that. You have some freedom of speech. These people in the military today, including this senior officer, are told to shut up. You shut up or else you're out. You fall in line or you're out. Now, there's been some senior officers we know that have been taken out of position for misconduct. And when I went through what they call the charm school, once you make brigadier, they put you through a 2-week charm school in Washington. And so one of the speakers there was saying there's 3 things why generals get in trouble. And so we're sitting there listening. 1, women. 2, booze. And 3, airplanes. And he said George generals lose their positions for misuse of airplanes, or being promiscuous, or drinking. And so when you think of it, it's a civilian society is probably the same thing, except for the misuse of airplanes. But General Petraeus, Linda Broadwell, I mean, things happen in war zones. But here's the thing about purged again. Nobody's getting purged in the IRS. Nobody's getting purged at the Attorney General Department of Justice. Nobody's getting purged at the State Department because of Benghazi. Nobody's being purged out of the White House, except the one young man who was tweeting, I guess. You remember that about a month ago or 2? Young guy was tweeting out of the White House and saying some things, and he was tossed out. So there's a prejudice against the military of trying to weaken our military to the point and only have these ideologues and the senior ranks who are falling in line with Obama. That's what's happening. I mean, this is just, I can't believe this is happening in America. And like Congress, as neutered as they are, doesn't do anything about it. The senior Republicans in Congress, they don't do anything about what's going on in our military. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And when I met with General Sisi over in Egypt about a month and a half ago, here we have Egypt, 45 years our ally. They're protecting the Suez Canal. We promised them all these spare parts for the planes we gave or given, and the military aid. There's a whole new improvement modernization program in Apache helicopters, and they're trying to protect the Sinai, south of Israel, where whole groups of Al-Qaeda are forming and training over there. Then you got all the Al-Qaeda training in Libya now. And here's Egypt. Guess what happened in the last month? Egypt has had 3 delegations from Russia come back in, signing agreements with Russia now to provide them spare parts for the airplanes, new missile systems and everything. All of our allies have vacated us. Saudi Arabia doesn't want to have anything to do with us. Syria, when I visited with the Free Syrian Army, why can't you come help us? We don't need troops on the ground. Just give us some stuff to shoot the Assad's planes down, because that's where we're getting all of our injuries, killing all of our people. So I go back. Our government's totally broken. Can't seem to accomplish anything. Anything. We have not had, if you think of it, unless you guys correct me, and women in there that are sitting that understand history, we haven't had a diplomatic victory since the wall went down. And who created that? Reagan. Think about it. What diplomatic victory have we had since that? And here you have Hillary Clinton burning up all this fuel, Kerry burning up all this fuel, and they come back and you say, well, what do you accomplish? I mean, this thing with Iran is a total fluke. It's a total myth. Nobody in the world thinks that there's a good deal in that at all, except John Kerry and Obama. And then Obama supports the Muslim Brotherhood, who supports the Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, the other forces over there. I mean, it is, I hope I'm not, these are things you see about. I'm not telling you anything different. I'm just trying to put it in perspective that what the chessboard's like out there, particularly in the Middle East, and who are the players on the chessboard. We're not a player at all. I mean, this is unbelievable. So, anyhow, we go to the next question.
General Vallely, we had asked our members to submit the questions in advance, but I have 2 requests if you have the time, because we have a little more time. So if you do, we'll take 2 more questions and kind of a half a question. It was also asked, going back to the purge, is there anything that we can do about it as Americans, or any recommendations you have? And following that, we'll bring on 2 more questions. Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you, that's a great question. We've got a group of retired senior officers, Admiral Lyons, myself, General McInerney, and General Boykin, that are working in Washington, D.C. now, or actually working, as I said, on the Benghazi thing. You can support my organizations as much as you can. I don't give money to political candidates anymore. I am so tired of, and I'll never write a check to the Republican Party. But if you support organizations that are actually doing something, you get hit every day. How many emails do you get every day asking for money and asking for this? And then at the end you say, well, what are you doing? And you never see anything. You never see any action. I mean, I send teams into the Middle East. I go out there myself and I find out what's going on. So I can come back and I can astutely, write an article or go on TV or radio and talk about it. Again, finite, we've got a lot of retired, no, I won't say retired, but well, I guess they are, but veterans organizations, now we've got 200,000 Marines that they're tying me into. I had a call this afternoon from Idaho. The gentleman said, if I give you 250,000 Marines to go to Washington, will you lead them? I said, yes, I will. I'll surround the White House and I'll surround the Capitol building. But it's going to take physical presence to do things. Writing letters to these senators and congressmen, I am so frustrated because nothing happens. So I think I'm not inciting a revolution, but we've got to get more physical and stand up and protest. And the great things that Tea Party did, I mean, they were out there in community, standing up, being seen. They did things. So we've got to go based on what the Tea Party has done and elevate it into something and get more younger people involved. So I don't know how else to do it. And I don't want to be criticized as starting a revolution, but I'd certainly head it if we had to. We all love a good fight if it's worth it, right?
Good evening,
Yes, sir.
Good evening, General. Thank you for your service. My question is you've alluded a number of times to people that are sitting back in D.C. that don't want to do anything for any of us. And a lot of our elected officials now, when they run for office, use the 80-20 mantra of Reagan. But they use it when the 20% is voting away our constitutional rights. Not to negotiate a budget plan, but to actually violate our rights with spying, CISPA, SOPA, NDAA, and other things. Where do you stand on, you talk about an umbrella group, where do you stand on us removing these type of people from office? To maybe get some help?
Yeah, they got to be removed. And I mean, even, you know, I'd like to say, well, the elections in 2014, that's all they talk about. Well, yeah, they're important, and that's going to happen. But if we continue with politics as usual, okay, I don't see much different than a lot of these Republicans from the damn Democrats.
That's true.
You know, and I'm inspired by some of these younger. I love this Mike Lee, for example, from Utah. He's a great example of a young guy. I think his name's Jordan. Is it Jordan from Ohio? Trent. What's the gentleman from South Carolina that's on the Benghazi Commission?
Trey Gowdy.
Trey Gowdy? Something like that, yeah. We got some young women. So we've got to continue to nurture that and get those kind of people. And we want them to be above being a Republican or being a Democrat. And that's the first question we should ask them. Are you running it as an American first, or are you running as a Republican? If they say Republican, say you're out. We're not supporting you.
Yeah.
We have a Navy SEAL that's running for Congress up here, and I've been working with him and trying to get him to talk that way, that we're only supporting candidates who are Americans and they stand for these things. And you know, you can delineate them. It's all the same things that the Tea Party stands up for, Stand Up America, smaller government. But you know, you throw a lot of these things out, a lot of these people vote. You got to have charisma. I mean, nobody wanted to vote for McCain, but they did. Yeah, I mean, even Mitt Romney, God bless him, he couldn't connect with anybody. You know, you could have buried Obama.
I know.
Easily, if you just had been a true warrior out there. I'll give you an example. We tried to give Mitt Romney the details of the Benghazi thing after the first debate. We gave it to his staff. Staff came back to me and said, we're only going to do the economy. And remember, Romney fell on his ass the second debate because he wouldn't take on Benghazi? Fatal mistake. But we need leaders that get up and they go for the throat. And that's the thing, and we found out 2 weeks ago that Republicans don't go for the throat. They get their ass kicked all the time, mostly. Whereas these Democrats, boy, I'll tell you, they're ruthless.
That's right, yeah.
They lie, cheat, do whatever they have to.
That's right.
And so you gotta figure out a way
That's right.
to beat them. And I think you beat them by being a strong American. I don't give a damn if you're a Republican Democrat. I'm a damn American, and I'm gonna beat you, and I'm gonna win. So, one of the other initiatives we're working on, and I'm gonna send it to Roger Ailes at Fox, is to do away with all of these radio and TV hosts talking about Hispanic Americans, Black Americans, all these classes. And I'll give you the example why I think this is important. Ray Tanner's a good friend of mine. He's a professor at Georgetown. And they interviewed him. I was with him. And he's a black professor. And so they said, well, what do you think about the first black president? And Ray said, I don't do black. The guy looks at him, what do you don't do black? What do you mean? He said, no, I do people. So don't talk to me about black or white or anything like that. I think that's the dialogue we have to have. If anybody brings up Hispanic, American, well, this or that, no. We as Americans do people. We don't give a damn what color you are or where you came from, unless you're a good American. So that's a whole different approach of trying to do away with classes within America. Because it doesn't do them any good, it doesn't do the whole country any good. So that's just another initiative. How you dialogue, the words we use are very important, I think.
General Vallely, thank you so much for addressing our group tonight. Thank you so much for your active military service and everything you've been trying to do for our nation since your retirement. We all thank you so much.
My email, and it's Prince Nemo. That's my dog, by the way. And I want to give this email to special people like the Tea Party people. It's princenemo@reagan.com. princenemo@reagan.com. I'd love to hear your feedback and get some of your ideas. And then our website is standupamericaus.org. standupamericaus.org. And we post there every day. You can take anything off of it and use it as you want to for whatever forms you may have, or send them on to other people. But we are having a positive impact, so we've got to keep at it. And we've got to use the media. And I'm just a big believer in it, that as much TV and radio and publicity that we can get, the more people we'll reach.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I want to thank all of you for being a great audience tonight for General Vallely.